can't believe it. She looks exactly like my mother.
I've lived alone on this property for nearly 5 years now. It's a secluded spot, miles away from the nearest neighbor, tucked deep into the woods where the only sounds you usually hear are the wind through the pines and the occasional deer moving through the brush. I've always liked the isolation. Or at least, I did. But after what's happened over the last few months, the silence of the woods doesn't feel peaceful anymore. It feels like a trap. I don't know what this thing is, or why it chose to target me. All I know is that it first showed up on a night that felt like the world was ending. It was a massive thunderstorm, the kind that shakes the very foundation of the house and turns the sky into a strobe light of jagged electricity. I was in my living room, trying to drown out the thunder by watching a movie. I had a bowl of popcorn and a cold beer, doing my best to ignore the way the wind was howling against the siding, making the old wood groan. Then, during a brief, eerie lull in the rain, I heard it. Knock, knock, knock. It was faint, but distinct. I froze, my hand hovering mid-air over the popcorn bowl. My first thought was that a branch had hit the door, or maybe the wind was playing tricks on my mind. I tried to focus back on the movie, but every nerve in my body was suddenly on high alert. Then it happened again, louder, more deliberate. I paused the movie. The sudden silence in the room was suffocating. I crept toward the foyer, my feet light on the hardwood floor, trying not to make a sound. I reached the door and stared at the wood, as if I could see through it. No one should have been out there. It was after midnight, in the middle of a torrential downpour, miles from the main road. I swallowed hard and found my voice, though it felt thin and weak. Hello? Is someone out there? I expected a neighbor with car trouble, or maybe even a lost hiker. What I got instead made the hair on the back of my neck stand straight up. Alan, it's your mother. Please, let me in. I felt the blood drain from my face. My heart didn't just race. It hammered against my ribs so hard it was painful. My mother had been dead for 13 years. I remember the funeral. I remember the smell of the damp earth and the coldness of the ground as they lowered her casket. I don't know who you are, I yelled, my voice cracking with a mixture of fear and anger. But you need to leave right now. My mother is dead. There was a long, chilling silence. And then, the voice changed. It became more desperate, more frantic, but it still sounded exactly like her. Alan, please let me in. It's cold out here. It's so cold. It hurts. The knocking suddenly turned into a violent pounding. The door was rattling in its frame, the wood groaning under the pressure of whatever was on the other side. You're an awful son, the voice shrieked, hitting a pitch that set my teeth on edge. It used the exact same inflection she used when she was disappointed with me. Leaving your poor old mother out here in the freezing rain. Alan, open this door right now. I backed away into the kitchen, grabbing a heavy knife from the counter, my eyes never leaving the front door. The pounding reached a deafening crescendo, shaking the pictures on the walls. And then, as suddenly as it had started, it stopped. The only sound left was the drumming of the rain. Then, a final whisper drifted through the cracks of the door, cold and venomous. I expected better from you, Alan. I heard something heavy lumbering away from the porch. The footsteps didn't sound human. They sounded far too heavy, far too large. I stayed awake all night, clutching that knife, staring at the door until the sun came up. For the next 2 weeks, I was a total wreck. I didn't sleep more than an hour at a time. I checked the locks every 10 minutes. I tried to tell myself it was a prank, or some kind of grief-induced auditory hallucination, but deep down, I knew better. Then, 2 weeks later, the clouds gathered again. The forecast called for 3 days of non-stop rain. I was in the living room, trying to stay calm when the knocking returned. Knock, knock, knock. This time, I felt a surge of pure, icy adrenaline. I looked at the door and realized with a jolt of horror I hadn't locked the deadbolt after coming home from the grocery store. I watched in slow motion as the doorknob slowly, deliberately, began to turn. I lunged across the foyer, my socks sliding on the hardwood, and slammed my weight against the door just as it began to crack open. I fumbled with the lock, clicking the deadbolt into place just as something on the other side shoved back with immense strength. Then came the laughing. It was a high-pitched, manic cackle that sounded like my mother, but twisted like a recording being played at the wrong speed. Alan. Alan, I know you're there. Won't you be a dear and let me in? I didn't say a word. I went through the house, checking every single window, making sure everything was sealed tight. I returned to the living room and sat in my armchair, facing the door. I didn't turn off the TV, hoping the light and noise would keep me grounded. But then, I felt it, that sensation of being watched. I looked toward the window. The curtains were closed, but there was a thin sliver where they didn't quite meet. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning lit up the backyard. For a split second, I saw it. A face was pressed against the glass. It wasn't my mother. It was something pale, something skeletal, with a sickly, yellow eye that stared directly into mine. I spent the rest of that night with a shotgun across my lap. I thought I was safe, as long as the doors stayed locked. I thought I had outsmarted it, but a few nights later, I woke up to a sound I couldn't identify. It was raining again. I sat up, feeling a strange, freezing draft in the room. I swung my legs over the side of the bed to go check the window, but as soon as my feet touched the floor, I felt a searing, white-hot pain. Something had grabbed my ankle. Hard. I screamed, pulling my leg back up as I felt hot blood begin to soak into the sheets. Another flash of lightning filled the room, and I saw it. A gnarled, gray hand with long, black claws was reaching out from the pitch-black darkness beneath my bed. And then, that voice, that horrible, mocking voice drifted up from the floorboards. "Thank you, Alan. Thank you for letting me in." I managed to scramble away and lock myself in the bathroom. I've called the police, but the storm has washed out the main road, and fallen trees are everywhere. They said it could be an hour, maybe more, before they can reach me. I can hear it now. It's pacing outside the bathroom door. It's not pounding anymore. It's just whispering. "Come here, Alan. I have something for you." Such a nice boy. Help your poor mother up. I love you, Alan. Please, come lay with me for a while. I'm sitting here on the cold tile floor, watching the door handle jiggle slowly up and down. I don't know what this thing is. I don't know why it's using her voice. All I know is that I'm running out of time, and the worst part is, it still sounds exactly like her. I don't usually talk about her. People used to whisper when I was growing up. They called me strange, unstable, imaginative in all the wrong ways. After everything I went through, I learned it was easier to keep my mouth shut. But tonight, I'm scared, and I don't know who else to turn to. I've been told there are people who believe in things beyond what we can explain. People who might understand. So I guess I should start at the beginning. I grew up in a quiet town on the far edge of the suburbs. The kind of place where the houses sat far apart and the nights felt unnaturally silent. We weren't wealthy, but land was cheap, and our backyard stretched out farther than most. About 100 yards beyond the fence stood an old stone well at the forest's edge. As a child, I'd wander near it, collecting fallen leaves or staring into the darkness between the trees, always feeling like something was watching me back. That feeling followed me inside. As far back as I can remember, she was there whenever the sun went down. I called her my other mother. She would stand quietly in my bedroom at night, sometimes near the door, sometimes by the window, occasionally at the foot of my bed. She never moved unless she needed to. I grew up seeing her so often that I assumed everyone had one. It never occurred to me that this wasn't normal. Now, of course, I know better. The closest comparison I can make is a guardian angel, though she looked nothing like the ones depicted in books or churches. She appeared ancient, as though time itself clung to her. Her clothes hung loosely from her frame, dark and worn, as if they had absorbed years of damp earth and smoke. She always looked slightly wet, as though she'd stepped in from a fog-covered swamp somewhere deep beyond the trees. Her movements, when she did move, were deliberate and graceful, each step measured and calm. When she stood still, she was almost indistinguishable from a statue. Sometimes, faint traces of mud or leaves appeared where she stood, but they would fade quickly, like morning dew burning away in the sun. Her hair was long and dark, tangled with bits of forest debris. Once, I could have sworn I saw moss clinging to her shoulders. Despite all of this, I was never afraid of her. Not once. On nights when I felt scared, when the house creaked, or shadows stretched across the walls, she would look at me and smile, just slightly. Then, she'd whisper in a low, soothing voice, "I am here." And somehow, I always believed her. Looking back, I realize how strange it was that I didn't question her existence. But when something has always been part of your life, you don't think to doubt it. The first time I realized she wasn't real to everyone else was when my dad came in to tuck me into bed one night. She was standing by the door, just like usual. I remember watching him walk straight past her without even flinching. When I asked him why he didn't say goodnight to her, the color drained from his face. That was the beginning of the doctor visits. Psychologists, pediatricians, specialists with gentle smiles and notebooks full of questions. Somehow, I passed every evaluation. I wasn't aggressive. I wasn't distressed. I wasn't hearing voices telling me to hurt anyone. Eventually, the visit stopped. My parents never said it out loud, but we all settled on the same explanation: an imaginary friend. I played along. It was easier that way, but she never left. Years passed, and my other mother remained a constant presence. Watching, waiting, protecting. Then, when I was 14, something changed. There had been rumors at school about a dangerous individual who'd escaped from custody in a neighboring county. Parents whispered at pickup lines. Police cars began patrolling closer to town. Our house, tucked away on the outskirts, saw little of that attention. I remember falling asleep that night, feeling uneasy, though I couldn't explain why. The sound that woke me wasn't loud, but it was wrong. Glass. I sat up in bed, heart racing, scanning my dark room. That's when I saw her, standing near the door with her hand raised slightly, palm open, a silent warning. "Stay still." Light appeared beneath my bedroom door. I heard my father's voice in the hallway, tense and confused. Then everything happened too quickly to fully understand. Raised voices, hurried movement, fear cutting through the silence. Through it all, my other mother didn't move. She leaned closer and whispered to me again, "I am here." I would won. I stayed frozen, clinging to those words as if they were the only thing holding me together. Eventually, the house grew quiet but not empty. Footsteps began moving toward my door. Slow, careful. I felt my breath catch as the handle turned. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run, but I didn't, because my other mother was still standing there, watching, waiting. The door opened slowly, almost politely. Light from the hallway spilled into my room, cutting sharp lines across the floor and my bed. In the doorway stood a man I had never seen before. He was tall and unkempt, his posture loose in a way that made my stomach twist. His eyes locked onto me instantly, not surprised, not confused, just focused. He smiled. It wasn't wide or exaggerated. It was calm, patient, like he had all the time in the world. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to move, but I couldn't. I felt like I was being held in place by something unseen. My heartbeat pounding so loudly I was sure he could hear it. I glanced to the side, desperately searching for her. For the first time that night, my other mother was gone. The man took a single step into my room, then another. I don't remember him saying anything. I remember the way the air felt heavier with each step, pressing down on my chest until it became hard to breathe. I remember thinking absurdly that I should have listened more when my parents talked about locks, about safety, about how the world wasn't as kind as I believed it was. Then, without warning, an overwhelming sense of calm washed over me. It was sudden and complete, like being wrapped in a thick blanket during a storm. The fear didn't fade naturally, it was pushed away, replaced by something solid and reassuring. I knew that feeling. I heard a sharp intake of breath that didn't come from me. The man stopped. His smile faltered, confusion flashing across his face as his body stiffened, as if he'd hit an invisible wall. His hand trembled. His eyes darted, no longer focused on me, but on something behind him. Slowly, impossibly, his expression shifted from confidence to fear. That's when I saw her again. She was standing directly behind him, but she wasn't watching me anymore. She was watching him. Her presence felt different now, heavier, more focused, no longer passive, no longer merely observing. The man tried to turn, but his body wouldn't respond the way he wanted it to, like someone else had taken control of the strings. He stumbled backward, gasping, clawing at his own throat as if something unseen had suddenly tightened around him. Panic replaced intent in his eyes. He tried to scream, but the sound never fully came out. I watched, frozen, as he collapsed to the floor. The house went completely silent. For several long seconds, nothing moved. Then she stepped away from him. Her gaze returned to me, and the change in her expression was immediate. Whatever severity had filled her face faded, replaced by that familiar, comforting stillness. She tilted her head slightly and smiled, not wide, not warm, but reassuring. "I am here," she whispered. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at the doorway. Eventually, reality crept back in. I found my voice just enough to call for help. Sirens arrived not long after. Apparently neighbors had reported something earlier in the night. The authorities told me their version of events. They explained it carefully, gently, in a way designed to protect a child from something too terrible to fully understand. According to them, the intruder had panicked, overwhelmed by his own actions. What happened next, they said, was the result of his own choices. They said my mind filled in the gaps. They were wrong. After that night, my life fractured. I didn't stay in that house. I didn't stay in that town. I moved between relatives, temporary homes, places that were meant to help me feel safe again. Through it all, she followed. Every night, standing in corners, by windows, watching silently as I slept. Doctors continued to ask questions, more evaluations, more careful notes. Eventually, they decided my other mother wasn't a danger. If anything, they believed she was a coping mechanism, a protective image my mind created in response to fear and loss. They told me she would fade over time. She didn't. I grew older, finished school, built something resembling a normal life. I learned how to function, how to smile at the right moments, how to avoid talking about the things people weren't prepared to hear. And every night, when the sun slipped below the horizon, she would appear, always silent, always watching, always there, until tonight. Tonight, the sun set and she didn't come. At first, I told myself she was just late, that I'd finally grown out of her, that the doctors had been right all along, and whatever part of my mind needed her had finally healed. But the absence felt wrong. The room felt exposed, unprotected. I'm sitting on my bed now, staring at the place where she usually stands. My door is closed, my window is locked. Everything is exactly how it should be, except for the sound. It's faint, barely noticeable, a soft rustling coming from inside my closet. Slow, deliberate, like something adjusting its position, waiting. And for the first time in my life, when I whisper into the darkness, there is no one there to whisper back. When I was 11 years old, my life changed in a way that most children only experience in their worst nightmares. It was a Tuesday afternoon, a day that started out as ordinary as any other. But when I walked through the front door after school, the house felt different. It was too quiet. There was a heaviness in the air, a stillness that felt like a held breath. I found the note on the kitchen counter. It was a simple piece of lined paper, folded once. I remember the way my hand shook as I opened it. In my mother's familiar, loopy handwriting, it said that she loved me, my father, and my brother, but that she wasn't happy. She said she needed to be somewhere else. She promised she would call as soon as she was settled and had a phone. She never did. For the next 10 years, my family lived in the shadow of that abandonment. We didn't talk about it much, but the absence was always there, like a missing limb. My father eventually remarried when I was in high school. My stepmother is a good woman, and we get along well enough, but I never called her mom. I had accepted that my biological mother was gone, either dead or living a completely new life under a different name. We tried to find her, hiring researchers and searching records, but she had vanished into thin air. I made a vow to move forward, to stop looking at every woman on the street, wondering if it was her. Then came 2006. It was my 21st birthday. I was living in a dorm at college, trying to balance classes and the excitement of finally being legal. When I returned to my room after a long day, I saw a package sitting on the floor against my door. It was wrapped in bright, celebratory paper with a ribbon. There was no shipping label, no postmark, just my name written on the top. Inside was an iPod Nano. At the time, it was the one thing I desperately wanted but couldn't afford. I had only mentioned wanting one to my brother a few weeks prior. Taped to the inside of the box was a small card. My heart nearly stopped when I saw the handwriting. Dear Eric, happy birthday to my wonderful son. I love you so much, and am very proud of you. Mom. The handwriting was a perfect match for the note I had found 10 years earlier. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. I called my dad, then my brother. Both were just as shocked as I was. My brother swore he hadn't spoken to her. He was actually hurt he hadn't received anything for his birthday. I spent the next few weeks in a state of constant hypervigilance. I scanned the crowds on campus, looking for a face I barely remembered, convinced she was standing just out of sight, watching me open that gift. But she never appeared. 4 more years passed in silence. By 2010, I had graduated and met the woman who would become my wife. That December, I brought her home to meet my family for Christmas dinner. It was a small, intimate affair, just me, my girlfriend, my dad, my stepmother, and my brother. We had a great time, and I felt like I was finally part of a stable, happy unit. A week later, I opened my laptop and saw a new email. The subject line was blank. The sender's address was her name, followed by her birth year. Hi, Eric. It was great to see you at Christmas. Your girlfriend is a sweetheart. I'm so happy for the two of you. Give me a call, and maybe the 3 of us can go out for lunch sometime next week. Love you, Mom. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. She hadn't been at Christmas. There was no way. I had been in that house all night. I checked with everyone who was there, and they confirmed the same thing. No one else had come by. I replied to the email immediately, demanding to know where she was and how she had seen us. I sent dozens of messages over the following weeks, but I never got a single response. It was as if she was broadcasting on a frequency that only went one way. After that, the check-ins became a regular part of my life. She would email every few weeks, always acting as if we were in constant contact. When I got married, a long, handwritten letter arrived at our house. It described the wedding in vivid detail, the flowers, the music, the way my wife looked in her dress. It was terrifyingly accurate. It felt as if she had been a guest, sitting in the pews, invisible to the naked eye. My relationship with my brother began to deteriorate because I couldn't help but suspect him, even though he seemed genuinely distraught by the whole situation. But the most chilling incident happened in April 2013. I had decided to get a new start. I bought a new cell phone and a completely new service provider. I was assigned a new number 1 that I hadn't even shared with my wife yet. I was the only person on the planet who knew that number. I was driving home from the store when the phone rang. I didn't answer it because I was behind the wheel, and I figured it was just a telemarketer or a wrong number. When I got home and sat in my driveway, I saw I had a voicemail. I pressed play, and for the first time in 17 years, I heard her voice. Hey, kiddo, it's Mom. Just thought I'd say hi. Hope things are good. I was wondering if you'd like to go get lunch or something. You, me, and your wife. Maybe that Japanese place we went to last week, right? The one with the tuna rolls. Anyway, give me a call. Love you. Okay, bye. I dropped the phone. My wife and I had gone to a Japanese restaurant the week before. We had ordered tuna rolls. But we were alone. We hadn't seen a soul we knew. I immediately dialed the number back, my hands trembling so hard I almost couldn't hit the buttons. A recording came on. The number you have dialed has been disconnected or is no longer in service. Since then, the contact has only increased. She texts me now. She'll wish me luck before a big presentation at work. She'll comment on the color of my new car. When my daughter was born, a package of baby clothes appeared on my front porch. There was no postmark, no delivery service involved. It was just there. The card inside gushed about how happy she was to finally be a grandmother. I reached a breaking point and hired a team of private investigators. I gave them every email header, every phone number, every scrap of paper. Their report only made things worse. The emails and calls were routed through servers all over the country. Seattle, Miami, Chicago, Dallas. She was constantly moving, a ghost in the machine. Yet, she knew what I was eating for dinner in a suburb of Ohio. The most disturbing part isn't the tracking, it's the tone. She writes to me as if she never left. She doesn't acknowledge the 17 years of silence or the note she left on the counter. In her mind, we are a normal, happy family that sees each other every week. I used to lay awake at night as a child, praying for the phone to ring, hoping she would come home. Now, I lay awake in a cold sweat, staring at my phone on the nightstand. Every time it pings, a jolt of pure dread shoots through my chest. I feel like I'm living in a glass house, and somewhere out there, in the dark, she's standing just beyond the tree line, watching me through a pair of binoculars. I don't know what she wants, I don't know why she's doing this, but more than anything, I'm afraid that one day she'll stop sending messages and finally decide to walk through the front door. And I don't think I'm ready to see what's waiting on the other side.